Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Deborah Harry has come here first on a solo album.
My baby has problems, I think it's quite unique. She saves lots of money, not brushing all her feet. But I never buy her makeup or lipstick that is red. She looks so good without it. Plus my baby's got no hair, got no head, no head, got no head, no head, got no head, no head, got no head, no head.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2015 Online Media Award-winning podcast, The Mad Scientist Sports Lab. My name is Nick Ficarelli. I am the Mad Scientist of Sports, bringing it to you live right here on Blog Talk Radio, where the beacons are lit, the experiments are on the chalkboard at the ready, and of course the test subjects, they just come rolling in. And with me, as always, is he's no longer my apprentice. Nope, not anymore. He is my partner in crime. He is the co-owner of this beautiful laboratory we have, Dr. Andrew Glukov.
Nick, it's a pleasure to say that we are an award-winning show. And for that, I've got a little of the beer that I'm popping open to celebrate.
Yes, I did my drinking last Saturday night, and I drank pretty heavily about it, considering the fact that when you actually upset guys like Dennis Farrell, Danny Thompson, and a couple of others, I mean, again, still pinching myself to this day. But alas, we must go on with the show. We are not going to pontificate on this until our 11 o'clock guest arrives, of course. But guess what? You know what it is? You know what time it is?
It is football season.
That's right, it's football season. And you know what that means? It's the return of one of the best segments that we had last year, back for season 2, which every 10 p.m. segment right here on the Mad Scientist Sports Lab, it's time for Allie's Fantasy Alley. And, of course, to have Allie's Fantasy Alley, you have to have Allie herself. Ladies and gentlemen, back for her second season, the lovely, the beautiful, and the talented Miss Allie Fontana. Welcome home.
Hey, guys. It's great to be back.
Great to have you.
Yeah, I can't believe we're, at week 1. Can I offer you congratulations on your award-winning podcast?
Thank you so much.
Stoked.
We appreciate that, Allie. And you happen to be a part of it. I happened to be a big part of it last year, doing this, doing the segment and everything. So obviously, we're doing something right. But we're going to get started right off the bat, and let's just say injuries are playing a huge factor right now in week 1. And I just wanted to know, were there any specific injuries that you wanted to touch on that will cause havoc for people that are trying to set their lineups for Sunday?
Yeah, I think we have a couple, just, touching quickly on the LeSean McCoy hamstring injury. He was kind of sidelined for most of August with that, but he did return to practice. So, if you drafted LeSean McCoy, you're using him in, what is a decent matchup, and he's going to get a lot of work. I think there's a possibility that he could tweak that hamstring or that he could be somewhat limited, but Rex Ryan is going to do the ground and pound there against the Colts. So I think you just roll with McCoy and hope that he makes it through the game. The other things, though, we should what's something that is kind of important. A lot of people drafted Todd Gurley in the 4th and 5th round, He did fall to the 6th toward the end of the preseason. Many people kind of cuffed Gurley with Trey Mason, or they drafted Trey Mason to kind of cover their butts if they took, let's say, Le'Veon Bell, because it looked like Mason would get work while Gurley was out. Unfortunately, Mason tweaked his hamstring. He hasn't practiced. I wouldn't count on him for tomorrow, so you might need to go to a plan C, depending on who's on your roster. If Mason is ruled out, then Benny Cunningham would, become a somewhat intriguing option if your waiver wire is a little thin, or depending on who else you had on the bench. Again, I like him in a points per reception league, and certainly in a deeper league. If you have other people on your roster, you may not need to go the Benny Cunningham route, but he's a guy to certainly look at if you're stuck. And just another one is Joique Bell. A lot of people drafted Joique Bell and Amir Abdullah, and we haven't really been able to give Joique Bell the eyeball test. He had both a knee surgery and an Achilles surgery in the off season, and he just returned to practice within the last 7 to 10 days. So we don't really know what to expect tomorrow with Bell. So if you have him and you're forced to use him, then go ahead and use him, obviously. But if you can afford to kind of wait and see with him in week 1, you might be better off doing that.
Now, what about at the wide receiver position? Because obviously during the preseason, it was just havoc being written with Jordy Nelson, Kelvin Benjamin, a whole slew of others that seemed to be, dropping like flies. Is there anybody at the wide receiver position, injury-wise, that people need to keep an eye out for? I think the first one for me that comes off the bat would be in Jacksonville with Marquise Lee out, and possibly taking a flyer this week on Allen Hurns.
Yeah, he's kind of a deep guy. I mean, a lot of people weren't even drafting Marquise Lee because we didn't see him in the preseason or even in camp. So I do like Allen Hurns if you need a wide receiver to step in there. But there are some big guys that everybody drafted within, let's say, the top 15 receivers. Randall Cobb he practiced all week and looks good to go for week 1. I'm not very concerned about his shoulder. It's different when it's, a knee or something like that. So I think you can use Cobb with confidence and expect he's going to get his normal workload in the game. I'm less confident in Mike Evans. He still hasn't practiced because of, an injury that he had. He's been kind of off to the side for the past 3 or 4 weeks. He looks like a game time call for right now. And so, I'd be a little concerned, obviously, if you drafted him as your wide receiver 1 or 2, you're kind of itching to use him, but it's a little bit of a risky business with Evans this week. So, I'd look and see, is he going to be a decoy? If he's used, is he going to be limited? And that's not the kind of thing you're really looking for in week 1. And the other guy that's a wide receiver 1 that many sort of drafted on the low end, but it's very critical to his offense, is Alshon Jeffrey. So he did practice on Wednesday for the first time in a number of weeks. He didn't practice fully on the strained calf, but the reports are a little more positive on Jeffrey than they are, let's say, on Evans. So you're kind of hoping that Jeffrey does play this week. It's a matchup of where you would imagine Jay Cutler is going to be throwing the ball a lot. The last time the Packers and Bears met in November, Aaron Rodgers threw 6 touchdown passes in a little more than, 2 quarters and a few minutes into the third quarter, and then he kind of retired to the sidelines. So I expect that to be a high-scoring game, and, of course, we want to see Jeffrey on the field.
Now, for tight ends, I was about to say, for tight ends, it looks like, Julius Thomas obviously ruled out. There's no Antonio Gates, in San Diego. So you're talking two of the top 10 tight ends, in fantasy football right now. But who who would you be looking at there, injury-wise as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, Ladarius Green was obviously, a lot of people drafted him to cover the Gates suspension, but he's in concussion protocol. So he's, where his status is up in the air. And, I wouldn't feel so comfortable using Ladarius Green. I think there's some other fill-in guys, that you might want to check out. Even a guy like Charles Clay has a nice matchup this week. He'd be an option I'd look at. We had also Zach Ertz. He was another player that many people drafted as, the 10th or, definitely a tight end 1. And he had a groin injury and had that same sort of sports hernia surgery that Arian Foster had. He returned to practice in a limited way this week, and he looks to be a game-time decision this week. But, it's a Monday night game, so you really don't want to be stuck waiting on Zach Ertz for Monday night. So, again, you just have to kind of look elsewhere for help there. I think, the odd thing is that people are sort of looking around and saying this is the toughest week because we haven't seen everybody's full offensive package. There's so many questions. There are a lot of 2 tight ends on a team kind of pairing, and we don't know who's going to get the bulk of the looks. In Baltimore, for example, a guy being talked up a lot the last couple of days is Crockett Gilmore. They drafted Max Williams, but Max Williams has been injured and missed a lot of time. So Crockett Gilmore stepped in. He's been known as sort of the blocking tight end. But at this point, if you need a flyer, I'm not saying he's anyone with certainty, but obviously with Brashad Perriman down for the count, he's ruled out. Joe Flacco doesn't have a ton of options outside of Steve Smith. I think he'll do a lot of checkdowns to Justin Forsett. And, then you have a Kamir Aiken, who is a wide receiver that's probably going to start opposite Steve Smith tomorrow. And so Gilmore could be a nice red zone target for Joe Flacco. And, in situations like in Denver, for example, you have Owen Daniels or Virgil Green. So, again, we know that Gary Kubiak likes 2 tight end sets, and both guys will be on the field a lot. But which guy will get the looks from Peyton Manning could be one or the other or both. But we think that when it's 2 of them, it kind of sort of, caps off their fantasy value. So it's a little bit of a quagmire this week in the tight end position. So you have to look at, the best options that you have available if you're missing a Julius Thomas. We had a big scare in the Twitterverse, though, when Travis Kelce rolled his ankle about 10 days ago, but fortunately it was minor, and he'll be on the field tomorrow. So I didn't get to draft any of Gronk this year because, the first-round tight end was not really my thing, but I did pull Travis Kelce's number an awful lot, so I'm certainly glad that he'll be on the field tomorrow, and I know a lot of other fantasy owners are as well.
Now, Allie, I have the distinct. I'm doing 4 fantasy teams this year, and the work league, the one that you have to deal with the office. I was gracious enough to be given the opportunity to draft both Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady. I just want to put that out there. And Tom Brady was actually my 2nd quarterback drafted. I got him like the 9th round because it was the day before his suspension was officially lifted. I ended up him and Peyton Manning, but I started Brady. I just wanted to point that out. I made the right move.
You did. I had a lot of Brady or Peyton questions this week, and I always went Brady, just looking at the matchup and with that healthy Gronk, it seems too enticing to pass up. So congratulations on you for making that right call. I know I've been hesitant to take a look and see if I've been Gronked or Brady'd and Gronked or Brady'd Edelman and Gronked in any of my leagues until tonight when I was looking at my lineup. So the damage wasn't too bad. It was a little spread out. So you don't have to make up a ton of ground. Some people will. It's just one of those things when you see a Thursday night game, and we don't get too many exciting Thursday night games, unfortunately. So that was certainly interesting, unless you were, Josh Scobie.
Ooh, too soon? Too soon?
Well, I said you can take the kicker out of Jacksonville, but you can't take the Jacksonville out of the kicker. It was just like, what a nightmare.
Oh, it was terrible. I felt bad for the guy. I'm from Cleveland. I do not like hits. I actually wanted Brady and Gronk to score lots of points and then the stadium blow up or something. I go to another dimension where neither team would win. But that's besides the point.
Yes.
As far as some of the receivers that had injury issues, like Randall Cobb, Mike Evans, would you start or sit given their current status? And obviously, Cobb's been dealing with a shoulder injury, and that we've all been freaking out about since Nelson's out. So would you actually, would you look at what's the possibility of them actually playing?
No, Randall Cobb looks, close to 100%. I'm not sitting Randall Cobb. I feel good about starting him and using him. And like I said, which should be a really great matchup with hopefully a lot of points on the board. So, yeah, it's business as usual for me. If I had Cobb, I'd roll with him with confidence.
What about Mike Evans?
Not as much. Like I said, he's sort of a game time decision, and that always, stinks for fantasy owners because you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. We've seen that with other players. Sometimes they use them, but they're really a decoy. It is an injury, a tissue injury, which could break, either aggravate it within the game or it could limit him in some capacity. I'd say if you drafted, a lot of people went heavy on wide receivers. If you have some other options available to you, I might be able to kind of sit Mike Evans this week if your roster can help you in that way. I mean, a lot of people went 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers heavy that are all kind of starters that you're confident in. So, like I said, it really depends on your roster. He's a guy that you'd probably not want to roll with if you didn't have to. So I'm less confident in him. I'm kind of like at 50%. I have a situation of my own where I do have him on my team, but I am benching him in favor of some other guys. Like I have Allen Robinson, Jarvis Landry, and somebody else I drafted ahead of Mike Evans, maybe Jordan Matthews. So I'm using those guys and just sitting Mike Evans this week.
With Markeith Lee being out, how does this impact the amount of offense that's going to go through TJ Yeldon? Obviously, a young, hot rookie.
Yeah, I mean, again, Markeith Lee was really more of you're really looking at Allen Robinson as sort of, the main receiver on that team, and I do like him this week. I do feel good about TJ Yeldon, at least, even though the Panthers defense can be formidable to some extent. I mean, I think he'll get enough volume where he's a good play. I'd feel okay using him as a running back too. And like I said, with Thomas being out and Lee being out, it's really about, like, if you really need a fourth receiver as your flex or something like that, that's where I like Hearns as a sleeper. So, but I do like TJ Yeldon as a play this week. He looked good in the preseason in the carries that we saw, and he is a 3 down running back, which is always great because I'm not so that, I was looking at sort of, the spreads and everything like that. And there was Carolina was giving 2.5 points to the Jags. And I really think with Carolina not having really a great receiving core outside of Greg Olsen this week, that game could go either way. I would not be surprised if the Jags won at home tomorrow. It really just depends on what Carolina can muster on the offense. I do like Jonathan Stewart as a start, though. So
Well, he doesn't have D'Angelo Williams to trade carries with, who had an awesome day in Pittsburgh on Thursday with the Steelers. But speaking of running backs, we know that Duke Johnson's dealing with injuries in Cleveland, but Cleveland got Robert Turbin after he was released from Seattle. Will Turbin's addition impact Crowell's fantasy value this week?
Absolutely not. Turbin was waived because of an injury. He has a high ankle sprain, so there's no timetable yet for him to come back. So, I mean, if you have Crowell this week and you need to use him, I would go ahead and play him this week. And actually, Duke Johnson looks probable for this week. Again, in these situations where we have this kind of unknowns, I mean, Crowell basically won the starting job this year because Duke Johnson couldn't get healthy or stay healthy. He had a hamstring injury and then the concussion. And Terrence West just basically couldn't get out of the coach's doghouse. So, he got shipped off to Tennessee for a 7th-round draft pick. So I look at Robert Turbin in this situation as depth for them. I did see that they activated Sean Drawn from the practice squad, so I guess he's going to be the third back tomorrow. Again, I really see that if you drafted Duke Johnson, maybe you don't have to use him this week, but I do think I saw people asking crazy things about dropping Duke Johnson for Christine Michael. And there are some players that you could make that sort of call for, but I wouldn't do it with a guy like Duke Johnson. I do feel good about him as the season goes on. So Crowell's in no danger tomorrow, though, of being usurped by Robert Turbin. So start him if you need to.
Fair enough. Now, you mentioned both Yeldon and Forsett, and this is kind of a loaded question because they're both on my team.
Okay.
Given the matchup, Yeldon against a Carolina defense that's decent against the run, but an offense that's very questionable, so they could be on the field a long time, and then Forsett against Denver. Who's your hot start between those two? Because obviously that's second-tier running back right there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, though, I'm starting Justin Forsett because, again, it is a tough matchup against, the Broncos. They do have a good front seven, but, again, with not a lot of people to throw to, not a lot of sure things to throw to, Joe Flacco, I can see that, Justin Forsett could rack up a decent number of catches tomorrow. So especially in a PPR league, he's going to deliver some solid. I have him at 11 this week. And again, it's close. When you start looking at these players, I mean, they're all kind of, within less than a point differential. So just because Justin Forsett in that offense is a known quantity, I feel confident using him. I mean, the Broncos did give up over 7 catches a game last year to running backs. So you look at it that you're going to get at least 6. And also Taliaferro is out of commission. And there is the other, Buck Allen, but he sort of had a fumbling problem at the end of the preseason. So I think if anybody's going to be on the field, it's going to be Forsett there. So I'm okay using Forsett, and I feel more confident using him than I would Yeldon.
One thing I've noticed in the fantasy drafts that I've been in is the desire to go to proven players over history. Now, a lot of them are getting a little long in the tooth. Like in particular, Larry Fitzgerald, playing for getting a little older, playing for a team with an older quarterback, and has a young hot receiver next to him in John Brown. Start or sit Larry Fitzgerald if you got him?
Well, I mean, if he's your third or fourth receiver, I have no problem with that. I have a ton. I bypass Larry Fitzgerald, and John Brown is one of my most owned players this year. I do play in a lot of PPR leagues. I like him as a wide receiver 3. This week, I mean, the thing is, the issue is that a lot of people, I saw so many rosters, people ask you to grade them, and So they either went and drafted a lot of young, unproven players early, but a lot of them, the roles aren't defined yet. I mean, week one is the hardest week to really sort of gauge how to use players. But Brown, flashed again in the preseason. The New Orleans defense is, a sieve. They won't have their top cornerback, Lewis. He's out. So I really do like John Brown as an upside wide receiver 3 play tomorrow. So I'd start him with confidence. And I actually have Fitzgerald, at 34. Again, because it should be a high-scoring game, and he will move the chains for Palmer. That's his role there now. He's a move-the-chains kind of guy. So in PPR play, there's not a reason to sit him over maybe some other guy that, doesn't have as good a matchup or that you just don't know what he's going to do.
Fair enough. And last question for you. Who's your dark horse defense? Obviously, most leagues have that defense special team slot. Who's your dark horse that sleeper pick that, this team isn't widely talked about, but they'd be a good matchup this week?
Yeah, I mean, there are. Let me just check my notes because I did put a bunch down. I'm using the Packers this week. I like them against Cutler. And I know that's maybe sort of a down thing. I also like the Chiefs against Brian Hoyer and an Aaron Fosterless, Texans. So there are two defenses that I'm comfortable streaming this week. And then, believe it or not, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they do have a pretty decent defense. I'm not saying they're a risky pick, but they're sort of that fringe, DST1 that could score some points for you and maybe some interceptions and those type of things. So I kind of see them as a dark horse, but I do like the Chiefs and the Packers this week. If the one thing I wouldn't do is if you started the Bills, you might look for a plan B.
I'd like to point out that I have 2 Yahoo leagues. One of them I'm starting the Chiefs, and the other one I'm starting the Packers. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, this is why I won't draft like the Seahawks or the Bills or something like this, because I know that if they get a matchup in week one, like I was sort of all in on drafting the Colts because they have a really nice schedule. For the first several weeks, over the first several weeks, they're playing, some nice AFC sort of teams that they could score points against, even though they do not have a good defense, but it really doesn't always matter in fantasy. But then I sort of they had some injuries and some key losses, and then, as you get closer to the season, you start looking at these other options. So like I said, I do like the Packers and the Chiefs as flyers this week.
Now, back to me over here. I got a quick question. I got a quick question over here, and that's this. DeAndre Hopkins, what is your take on him? Now, everybody knows a couple of weeks ago we had the Lady of Fantasy Football special. I had a back and forth with Liz Loza, and I personally said, and people can go back and listen to it, I said I will not draft DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's going to be pigeonholed there. The talent is so vanilla that they're going to throw 4 guys on him because who do you have? So what do? I draft DeAndre Hopkins. So glad I took my own advice. What's your take on DeAndre going into the season?
Well, listen, although they are playing the Chiefs tomorrow, the Chiefs aren't shut down. The last time he played them in 2013, he had 76 yards and a touchdown against them. So for this week, I have him at 6 for 75 and, a decent shot at scoring. It really depends on if they can, get any ground game going. And one thing I'll say about Hoyer, he will throw the football. he doesn't have any hesitation about throwing the football. So, I mean, you're not going to be sort of, that's not going to restrict with whether he, throws a couple of picks, remains to be seen. But he is going to chuck the ball. So if you use DeAndre Hopkins tomorrow, the other thing I want to point out is that they don't have their top cornerback, Sean Smith, for the first 3 games of the season. And so they're going to be using a rookie named Marcus Peters and another dude named Philip Gaines to cover him. And, it's not like he won't be able to beat that coverage. And one thing I do like about Hopkins is that he will go for contested balls. He's not like, somebody that's not going to fight for that ball. So I feel pretty good about rolling with Hopkins tomorrow.
All right.
I would,
well,
even without Foster.
Thank you so much for joining us and starting off the show, as always, with Alex Fantasy Alley during the football season. Once again, why don't you let the good people know where exactly they can find you on social media?
Yeah, please follow me on Twitter at Allie Fontana. And I'm so excited to be back for a second season.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allie, and hope you have a great night, okay?
All right. Enjoy the rest of the show, guys. Thanks again.
We
Thank
will.
you. And that was Allie Fontana doing her weekly segment during the football season, Allie's Fantasy Alley. And very happy that she's back. Going to get some great information from her throughout the year. So looking forward to doing this segment for the next 17, 18 weeks. Well, the next segment's my type of segment, because I actually, for the first time in many, many moons, I get to wax poetic about my beloved New York Mets.
Here we go.
Who would have thunk that this team, as constructed a few months ago, through some shrewd move making, would be 9.5 games up with 20 games to play, in which there is the greatest possibility that we will be playing meaningful games, not just in September, but in October. And the first person that I'm going to introduce is one of my very, very good friends. And for all those that remember, he was part of the sports ministry on WTMY 1280 down in Sarasota, Florida. Also part of WTC in Punta Gorda. Used to be the host of a baseball podcast called Off the Wall. Although sometimes he tends to be a little bit off the wall, but I got to tell you, to have him back on air is always a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Mr. J.P. Muzio.
Well, thank you, Nick. That was quite the introduction. I'll tell you, buddy, I don't know. I know you on the show, but if you got to watch the Met game, wow, we just don't stop coming back, man. It's an unbelievable feeling right now.
So, and also joining us, another, not only a baseball historian, but another Met fan that happens to be on the show many times. Ladies and gentlemen, rejoining us, not talking about hockey this time, he's talking about baseball. He does have a book based on the New York Mets. Ladies and gentlemen, Sirius XM's own Russ Cohen. Russ, how you doing?
Good, Nick, how are you?
Sounds like someone's watching a game.
Yep, watching the game. So we'll try again. Russ, are you there?
All right. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's a lot of noise in the background.
Okay. Sorry. Doing my best here.
Hey, no problem.
It's all good.
So we'll start. Russ, we'll start with you. But 9.5 games with 20 to play. How good, honestly, does it feel right now as a Met fan and someone that's written about the history of the Mets? You know, how fun has this season been for you?
It's been unbelievable. I mean, considering I had to write about their big collapse and I had to write about Tom Glavine, books called Numbers Don't Lie, and it's just,
to write about all of these things, the big collapse, the biggest reason why the Phillies were able to even win a championship was because of the Mets collapsing, and to see them not collapsing really just makes my heart warm. It's just an unbelievable feeling, and you don't want to lose it.
And JP, obviously, for those that don't know, JP, if you follow him on Facebook or Twitter, has some of the wittiest things to say. I'm being clean when I say that when it comes to Mets, but obviously this has been a magical month. A magical last 2 months, I would have to say, with the way Cespedes has pretty much come in and dominated, for the Mets. That the lineup, a complete 180 from since the trade was made.
Well, and let's not start there. I'll tell you, it all started when Juan Uribe and Kelly Johnson came over to the Mets. Cespedes is getting all the pub, and rightfully so. I renamed my firstborn Cespedes just because of that, and he's been amazing. But let's not understate what Juan Uribe and Kelly Johnson have meant for this team. Sometimes you just inject new blood into a system, and it'll turn around. And that's what happened. Their first game with the Mets, they scored 15 runs. Ever since then, the Mets have looked like a completely different team. They felt like a different team. We get Wright back. We get d'Arnaud back. You get solid play from the crying fit from Flores. Let's remember, it was, a week before Cespedes, where the Mets fan, and me in particular, was hanging from the roof because of the Carlos Gomez trade falling through. We watched Wilmer Flores, show his heart on the field, cry. You felt terrible for the kid, but thought, we cannot win with this team. That injected so much life into this team, and it made me appreciate the fact that there was a player on our field that came up through our system that wanted to be part of this team. We haven't had that in forever. And if you remember the Minaya years, he brought in baseball players, not people that wanted to play baseball. That's the difference with this team today and the team that collapsed in 2007 and 8. Those were just baseball players. Luis Castillo, Carlos Delgado, they played for a paycheck. These guys that are here right now want to play baseball. They want to be on the field. Not one guy wants to sit. I love every second of it.
Now, all the Mets fans out there that are fatalists, and there are plenty, a lot of people still have 07 and 08 in the back of their minds. And when I say that, everybody remembers 7 games with 17 to go, the collapse. 4 games with 15 to go, collapse. And then after that, the bottom falling out from 2009 on. Russ, I'll start with you on this. Is it safe to say that you could tell the Met fans to walk away from the ledge, because it seems to me that this team has something that the 07 and 08 teams have, and that's not only just heart, but they have the perfect blend of pitching and hitting.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the big thing is the blend is great. The fact of the matter is the pitching was old back in the day. These guys are young. Jacob deGrom's in there, Noah Syndergaard. Now we have Matz coming in there. Colon, who is old, can still really pitch. It's a whole different feeling. These guys are winners. They're throwing smoke for the most part. Back then they were throwing finesse. Guys like Glavine were trying to paint the corners. It didn't work. I just tell you, it's just so refreshing. Cespedes is a guy that needs to get signed. I wrote about it a week ago. We all want him to get signed, even though that clause has been waived where he doesn't have to, you don't have to sign him within 5 days of the end of the season. We're all looking for that security for him, because he has put out an effort that's Mike Piazza-like, and maybe better, maybe the best I've ever seen. And it's really refreshing. And for Met fans, we're not going to get crazy. We want to see that magic number tick off, and everybody started it at 31, and there was a lot of laughs and a lot of conjecture online whether that was too early, and now it doesn't look that early.
Now, JP, I think the one thing that Met fans, though, are going to be leery about is Matt Harvey. Now, it's been discussed ad nauseum the last week, but there's a lot of he said going on between Harvey, Boris, and Alderson with regards to the pitch count. Everybody's like hanging on every word that Dr. James Andrews is going to tell everybody. When they talk about the hard 180 or is it a soft 180 or what would it be? Yes, Harvey wrote that article, but for some reason I still think that we may be looking at a Steven Strasburg situation, which I don't know is going to cause Harvey's season to completely implode or not. But after his last outing, against the Nationals, even though the Mets came back and won that game, you have to wonder if it's really starting to get to him.
Well, listen. First things first. I want to thank the Nationals for really making this a non-issue right now, because the Mets can sit back and now keep Harvey. They're going to skip him this start. I think that Yankee series means absolutely nothing right now. If you wanted to throw him 5 innings, you're good. You're still below your 180 going into the playoffs. You don't need to have him pitch. At least it looks like. And I know as a Met fan, we really don't like to count our chickens before they hatch. But, it really looks like right now Harvey doesn't to pitch against the Nationals the last week of the season. You can still be under the 180 by the time we get to playoffs. And that's, if you noticed, it's really died down quite a bit. We haven't heard much about it. Dr. James Andrews is never going to give you a hard and fast number. He's not that type of doctor. He can make suggestions. He can say this is where we sit. But what drives me nuts, and besides Scott Boras, who drives everybody nuts that isn't one of his clients, what drives me nuts is we worry about pitch counts in Major League Baseball. We worry about 100 pitches. That's the magic number in every start. Never once was it mentioned he can only go 6 innings. He can only go 5 innings. The things they do in spring training don't apply in the regular season. And now to give you a hard and fast number of 180, what the hell was the point of the 100 pitch count? What's the point? If he throws 100 pitches in 4 innings, we take him out, right? If we do that and he's now averaging 100 pitches per game, per start, yeah, I understand why you shut this guy down. But he's not. He's got 53rd, I think it is, most pitches in baseball. That's nothing for a guy like him, a guy with 166 innings. The Mets have done everything they could to watch his innings, keep control of this, so that if they did make it to October, he'd be full health, full strength, and ready to pitch. And if this guy wants to call himself the Dark Knight, you show up. You balls up and you show up come October and you ask for that ball. You don't say, all right, start me the 3rd game because I can only pitch 1 time. You have to be the thing that you say you are, and that is the best pitcher in New York. And I believe DeGrom is the best pitcher in New York. I've been saying it all year. I said it before the year started that DeGrom was our ace. Harvey, if you want to be the ace, you need to act like it. And you would never see any other pitcher, Seaver, Kuzman, Ryan, Gooden, Darling, you'd never see any of those guys say, don't give me the ball. If you want to be the greatest, you need to act like the greatest. And for this guy to worry about signing a contract in 2018, he's making a huge mistake to the fans of New York, and that is not a fan base you want to piss off right now.
Russ, I know your phone's running a little close. So one more question for you before we let you get going.
Okay.
If you were in Jeff and Fred Wilpond's shoes right now, and it was brought up earlier, Cespedes, the clause for the 5 days, it's gone. You can negotiate with him now. What's the magic number that you feel would be to make sure that his name is on the dotted line? Because with the way that what he has been doing since he came to New York has been nothing short of epic. It's exactly what JP said. It's like Mike Piazza. It was like Manny Ramirez from a couple of years ago with the Dodgers. Randy Johnson when he went to the Houston Astros and went like 16-1 with like a 1.4 ERA or something. We're looking at a pretty historic 2 months for this guy right now. What's the magic number for him?
Yeah, by the way, I echo all the sentiments about Harvey. Harvey is in the book, and I think right now he's given a Carlos Beltran type effort that Beltran did in Houston, not New York. We don't want to go there. And I think 5 years, $125 million is the actual magic number. But I think if you gave him 5 years, $100 million, you gave him an vesting option for a 6th year, and offered maybe 20, 22 that year, I think you'd get him. I think right now he's really pumped up with the race. You got to catch him in the moment. I'm not saying you need to get a discount. This is still a pretty hefty rate. This is the best year he's ever had. But I think they have to strike while the iron's hot. I think they have to get him now. If the fans knew he was signed for 5-6 years down the road, they would sell out every playoff game. Otherwise, yeah, they're going to do pretty well. But there's always going to be that thought like, we're going to lose him at the end of the year, and you don't want that to be in any minds of Met fans.
Now, Russ, why don't you let the people know about the book that you have coming out, and where they can find it, as well as what you've been doing, what's coming up next.
Thanks. It's called Numbers Don't Lie. It's out right now. It's at Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. We've got Jacob deGrom in there. We've got Juan Lagares in there. We've got Matt Harvey. And, of course, we go way back, and we go, to the 60s, and we have Seaver, and we go Koosman, and every big name you could think of is in there. All their, David Wright, any big number, any big contribution, they're in this book. Definitely go get it. I just feel honored that I was able to do this on a year where they were doing so well, because when we started to write the book, they weren't doing so well. So it just goes to show you that great things can happen. And after this Met book, I actually have a Philadelphia Flyers book coming out in January. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Russ. And again, hope to get you back on in the not-too-distant future, maybe when the phone's not on low.
Thanks. No, I appreciate it. Look, I've been to 27 consecutive home openers. I die really hard. I appreciate everything you guys are saying, and I'm sure the fans do too. And this right now, we just don't want this to end.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Okay, see you guys.
That was Russ Cohen. Fortunately, he was running into some technical difficulties with his phone, so we didn't want to keep. Obviously, we didn't want to keep him much longer than that. But going back to you, JP, we're gonna get off the Mets now, because I had my fun, I had my fill, and I'm just looking forward to October baseball. But I want to go, talk a little bit more about some of the other teams that look like they're on their way to some meaningful games in October. Let's talk the Kansas City Royals. I mean, team has been on fire. They're going to win. They're going to clinch the Central. Not too much, but it seems to me the wheels are starting to squeak a little bit, and you think the team is running into a rut at the wrong time?
I think it's more of they've had nothing to play for since All-Star break. I mean, when you're running as hot as the Royals have run this whole season, you're due for a little bit of a letdown. Does it concern you going into the playoffs? Absolutely, because they'd be the complete opposite last year, where they were red hot going in. But when you look at this team and you see, all right, you got Gordon just came back. Moustakas was hurt for a little bit for a couple of games. He seems back 9 RBIs today, so he looks fine. And then, Cueto has been very inconsistent for the Royals right now. But you still look at that team and you look at the AL and you think, if anybody's going to win a championship out of this division, and I know everybody's on the Toronto bandwagon and Toronto looks great, but let's be honest, it's the Royals. The Royals are the team in the AL that you think could win the World Series. I think it's a National League year. I look at the National League and they're just more dominant. But when I look at the Royals, I think that's the kind of team that wins in October. They got the bullpen depth. Wade Davis has been a little scratchy lately. Holland's been. But I think that's more of having nothing to play for. They turn it on come October. When the calendar turns and they're in there for the playoffs, I see them locking it down. I think they got the hitting, they got the pitching, they have experience, which is weird when you say Kansas City in the playoffs, but they have the experience now. And, yeah, you don't want to go in there limping, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they'll catch back up, they'll clinch this division, and they'll be lined up completely the way they want to be with Cueto starting game one, and that's the kind of game or the kind of guy that you want to put in the big game. I'm confident that they'll right that ship.
Now, I'm going to move to the National League quickly and talk about the NL Central. I mean, you're looking at probably both wild card teams coming out of the Central in the Cubs and the Pirates. St. Louis, they have a little bit of a hiccup, so we may have a pennant race like we did last year for the NL Central, which was one of the more exciting races. But I was, nobody expected the Cubs to do what they're doing right now, but it seems to me that Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant, the whole Jake Arrieta, it seems the young guns came to play, and they're at least 2 years, ahead of schedule of what Dio had in mind. And then you look at Pittsburgh, team's been together for 3 years, going to make the playoffs again. Don't know if they have the horses to get past either the wild card or round one for the division series. But you have to say that right now, in my opinion, the NL Central is the best division to me, is the best division in baseball. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, obviously you got 3 teams with 80 wins already. 3 teams that have clinched over 500 record. Yeah, the Central is a powerhouse right now. You got Pittsburgh and the Cubs. 9.5 games in the wild card. So it doesn't look like anybody else is catching them. The Giants are pretty much spit the bit and they're done. But when you look at the Central, and I think I don't think they're 2 years early. I think they're right on target. When they brought Madden in here, they knew this guy knows how to get the best out of young players. That's why they made the move that they made. That's why they tampered, and I don't want to hear they didn't. That's why they tampered with Madden to bring him over here, because they knew he was the guy that could expedite this move, can get guys like Schwarber. I think Schwarber is the guy that will make you forget about Chris Bryant in a full year. I mean, Schwarber is just a complete ball player. That kid is amazing. Bryant hits the moonshots. Schwarber's no slouch on his own. Schwarber is the complete baseball player. I love the way the Cubs have put this team together. They still need a pitcher. Lester is not the $150 million pitcher that they paid for. Arrieta has stepped up huge, and this guy, in all intents and purposes, is a Cy Young Award winner. Unfortunately, Greinke's just having the most sickest year ever. But when you look at the Central, it's a shame that Pittsburgh, the Cubs, and St. Louis, 2 of those teams are going to have to play for a wild card game, and one of them gets eliminated. And I say Pittsburgh will be the one on the outside looking in, even though right now they could still win the division. But when you look at it and you throw everything out there, the Cubs are the best team in the Central. I believe the Cardinals do things with smoke and mirrors, right? You look at their lineup. There's really nobody in there that you go, oh, you can't pitch to that guy, right? I mean, who's that guy? Jason Hayward, Matt Holliday? They don't have that guy. What they do have is they have a complete team. I think the Cubs are a better ball club. I think the way the Cubs are constructed right now, yeah, their bullpen is shaky, but Arrieta is going to give you 7 or 8 in the playoffs. Lester, regardless of how he can't pick a runner off, he is going to give you 7 or 8 in the playoffs. You only need one other starter in a short series. Those 2 guys can pitch, multiple games. I like the way the Cubs are constructed. The Pirates, I think, unfortunately, they're a one and done. They'll have their one game and be out. If they make it through, if they wind up winning the division, which I don't see it, but if they do, I don't think they get out of that divisional series. I love the Central. Yes, it's the best division, and I think the best team is going to be the second wild card team in there.
JP, it's been a while since you and I had our fun on WTMY down in Sarasota, so it's good to have you back on the radio with us. Yeah, it's always great when on Blog Talk Studios, it shows the numbers that are called in, and it's always great to see a 941 number. It makes me feel at home, even though my number is an Orlando number. But that's besides the point. I digress. Let's change gears to the American League, where we're starting to see the opposite of what's happening in the National League, where the wild card teams are condensing. You have Texas holding on for dear life in a second wild card race that has 5 teams within 5.5 games chasing. And then you have the Yankees, who are only 3 games up, and that's not a guarantee either. Texas has a run differential of -33. Do you see them holding on? Do you, or which one of these teams between Minnesota, the Angels, Cleveland, and Tampa Bay do you see finding a way to sneak up and catch the Rangers?
I'll tell you, and it's great to talk to you again too, Andrew. It's been a long time, man. But I will tell you, in the wild card, I don't think anybody has to worry about the Rangers being caught. I think they got to worry about the Yankees falling out. After the Yankees get swept today's doubleheader, they're now only 2.5 games in the wild card. They're without Teixeira for the rest of the year. They lost Eovaldi, who arguably been their best pitcher, second best pitcher behind Tanaka. Tanaka is his arms held together by bubblegum. So, I don't think Texas will lose their grasp on the spot, but I would worry that the Yankees can lose their spot. And I don't like Minnesota at all. I mean, that's a wiffle ball pitching staff. That's, guys that don't strike anybody out, and we all know that doesn't work well in the playoffs. The Angels are another team. Besides Garrett Richards, are you worried about, Jared Weaver? The American League is by default in the wild card right now. When you look at Cleveland is only 4.5 games out of the wild card, and they're a game under 500, just shows you the lack of depth in the American League. I think it still ends with the Yankees and Texas in the wild card. Maybe you worry about Minnesota. I don't know how. They just don't strike me as the team that can make that plunge. But I would say whoever the wild card teams are in the AL, they're done in the first round. I mean, whoever wins that game between the Yankees and Texas, and I don't know who's watching that game besides a diehard Yankee fan, that's going to be one boring game to watch. You're going to blow Tanaka out in that one game, and now you got to go ahead and play, the Royals with Cueto going on the mound. I just don't feel comfortable with anybody in the AL wildcard like I did last year with Kansas City and Oakland. So, while the AL is still got to put 2 people in there, I think it's by default, and it's not the way it's going in the National League.
Yeah, and, not wearing the hometown goggles for the Indians, they're a weird team. They're 4.5 out. They've come back to having a positive run differential, but they're 4 games under 500 at home. They actually have a above 500 record on the road. I think this could make for a very interesting finish because, traditionally teams at home play better unless you're the Cleveland Indians. So with Texas being such a rough, team as far as putting runs on the board, they got the challenges ahead of them, as you said. But I had one other question before we have to move on that old dusty trail. And as we know, Troy Tulowitzki got injured. It looks like it could potentially be bad. How do you think this will impact Toronto come playoff time? I mean, I think they've got the division locked up. I don't see the Yankees catching them. They're fading. But how do you see the Blue Jays being affected by Tulowitzki getting hurt?
Well, let me tell you, I like to call Tulowitzki Little Johnny Paper because he gets touched and he breaks something. It's a shoulder blade fracture. They're going to monitor. Lucky for Toronto, an embarrassment of riches when it comes to offense. It's not as if Tulowitzki is the end-all, be-all on that team. You lose him, you still got Joey Bats, you still got Encarnacion, you still got Russell Martin. That's a hell of a team. Ben Revere, I think, was the big pickup for them. A leadoff batter, always on base, a lot of speed, kind of can confuse the defense. I think they'll be just fine. Adding David Price adds to that. Tulowitzki is a great player when he's on the field, but if you're Toronto and you were expecting him to be an integral part of a full season, it wasn't going to happen. It's just he's not that guy. I like Toronto. I love David Price. He's pitching for a contract, which always makes it nicer. That's a strong team. That is a mashing team, and if you're going to play them, they're putting up 5 or more. I like Toronto. I don't think the Tulowitzki injury would impact them the way it would other teams. If anybody else had him right now and he went down, I would say, well, that's a crippling blow. For them, sit him out the next 3 weeks. Don't think it's going to be necessary to have him, and maybe he's fully healed by the time playoffs start, and you're good. And, Andrew, real quick, because I know I got to go, but I want to touch on your Indians and make you feel really good. I love that team next year. That pitching staff is phenomenal. They have really good ball players, and just a couple of signings, and I'm not talking big ones, fringe players, can make them a big play team next year.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that Kluber had such an awful start was an aberration. We saw what he did as a Cy Young Award winner. So I was asked the same question on the Sports Infusion show on the Inscriber Network, and I said the same thing. Kluber's start being so unusual, they're not going to get rid of Francona unless they're stupid as hell. And yeah, this team is a young team built for next year. They weren't supposed to contend this year, and then all of a sudden they just climbed their way back in. But JP, it's a pleasure to have you back on. There's, as you know, back home, there's a lot of things going on, and I'm just thrilled to have you with us. So why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Well, listen, if you want to talk baseball, JP Muzio on Facebook. I do not do Twitter anymore because same old. But right now, I am at a radio, not doing anything other than my occasional posts about the Mets and football season starting. You'll get some Dolphin action from me too. But guys, thanks for having me on. Anytime you want to talk baseball, I'm available. And Andrew, whatever you may be doing down here, give me a call, buddy. I'd be interested in joining you.
Yeah, well, there may be some things in play, but I'll talk to you offline about that later.
Wait. I do have one thing to say before JP goes. He's not on radio yet. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes. Okay. Well, guys, hey, wait, real quick, congratulations. Awesome job winning the award that you guys won. To be an award-winning radio show, internet radio show, whatever they want to call it. Phenomenal job. Congratulations. Nick, love seeing where you've come from being a caller on my show and now hosting an award-winning show. Andrew, great job as well, and congratulations, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely, JP. Thank you so much for joining us. And, yeah, I remember Nick when he was a caller on Tom Kernan's afternoon show that I was sidekicking on. Man, things have changed in 3 years.
They sure have. Have a good one, fellas.
Take it easy. And that was JP Muzio, formerly of WTMY 1280 and WCCP in Punta Gorda, part of the Sports Ministry radio show. Excellent guy, excellent sports mind, great when it comes to speaking baseball, especially about his beloved New York Mets. But it was actually the perfect segue of going into our next segment as we're starting the second half of our esteemed 2015 Online Media Award-winning podcast. And, Drew, I think that you should take this segment to start because you were actually at the conference last week when the award was handed out.
Well, first we have to introduce our friend who has joined us. This is Lowell Moore, and he is the fan man, the man behind the What a Fan movement. And I don't call it just an organization, it's a movement. Walking in had one feeling, walking out had a very different feeling. This is something very special, and Lowell has single-handedly put this on the map, and we are thrilled to have him on. So, Lowell, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, guys. I really enjoyed listening to your show earlier. Thank you for the introduction, and Andrew, it was a joy meeting you. You are truly a character and a very funny guy. Nick, you were well represented, my friend.
You hear that, Nick? You were well represented, and I am funny. So take it.
There was no doubt whatsoever that I knew what I was doing when I sent my once known esteemed apprentice as the representative for the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. And just to let you know, if I were there, I would have probably played straight man to Andrew's goofiness, because I think I would have went up there where all buttoned up, tied, squeezed up to the neck and everything like that. And Andrew, loosened the tie, had a lot of fun and everything. It would have been the perfect yin and yang. I'm sorry I missed it this year. I will hopefully make it for next year when it goes out to the great state of California and Los Angeles. But again, Lowell, I got to be honest with you, I'm still in shock. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm still saying we won. I mean, it's just that much of to me, it was just that much of like, there's really no other way to describe it, a shock.
Well, congratulations, you guys. You earned it. When I saw the name, I was pleased for you. We're very excited about the category. We feel, and I always have felt, that as we move this brand and this mission forward, that there are opportunities out there to recognize categories that will be beneficial to our long-term mission. And online media broadcasts that are being populated by fans like yourselves that have a voice and that are expressing that voice and talking about the sports and the topics that we love in sports, the topics that we're concerned about in sports, the things that are trending and in the news. You guys do a great job of keeping our interests relevant. And we believe that as we move forward, your same voices will help us perpetuate the mission that we have of honoring and celebrating and recognizing fans and their contribution to the sports industry. So it's an important category. Your win is well-deserved. We're very excited for you, and you guys are now part of a historic foundation that we've laid, and you will hopefully be ambassadors to our mission.
Well, when Pamela first introduced me to you earlier this year, I pretty much said it. I was like, whatever you need us to do here on this show, we will do it. And, when we found out about the nomination, I was shocked because I was like, at first I was like, why would anybody nominate me? And then, then after I spoke to Drew, and Drew was like, well, we must be doing something right to be nominated. And, it got me thinking. I was like, you know what? We got to put in, I got to put in the nomination form and everything. And I've seen many times where people become braggadocio, people like thump their chest and everything like that. And like I said, I'm usually like the straight edge guy on this, on this particular show, and that's exactly how I put it in the nomination, as straight edge as possible. And I remember someone telling me, why didn't you go overboard? Why, this is all about the fans. I was like, you're right, it's all about the fans. But my words on air, speak more for the fans, speak more for myself. The same with Drew when he speaks about whatever he speaks about. That's where we get our point across. I don't need to write it down 100 times over because it'll just become long-winded, boring, and everything like that. So when Drew let me know last Sunday that we won, I can actually tell you where I was. I was at a barbecue at a friend's house in Toms River, New Jersey, and the only thing I did is I looked up and everybody looked at me and I said, and your 2015 Online Media Award winner is the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. And everybody clapped, and I just had a grin on my face. Took a beer, everybody was like, that's really great, that's really awesome. I was like, it's still beginning for me and Drew, though. It doesn't stop. Because while we got the award, which is really nice, and trust me, I'm ecstatic about it, the job is not done. I can say for myself, I am so not perfect, it's not even funny. Everybody knows that. You have to continue. Don't. You just don't. I mean, you had your moment in the sun down in Orlando. But
don't worry, I'm about to throw you under the bus.
Yeah, I know. What do you call it? But I am not perfect. I know we have to continue to strive to reach that carrot known as perfection. And every time you get closer, the carrot moves away because you know it can't stop. Because to me, if you deem yourself perfect, that means your job is done and you're going to stay status quo. That's not happening on this podcast. That will never happen on this podcast. I can guarantee, and I know there's someone listening right now, hello, Mr. Nash, who knows me very well. I will not rest until it's just about done. If the fire was to go out, if, the time was just way too consuming, if I really become mad and get put into Bellevue or something like that, but I can tell you, Lowell, the award just makes, for me and Drew, just makes us want to work harder and makes us want to, give the fans more and give the fans that much more credit. And what you have done in such a short period of time is nothing short of amazing. And I thank you, although I wasn't there to thank you in person. I thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity to do what we do, and for the fans there to understand what we do. Now, I know I'm not as funny, I'm not as outgoing, I'm not throwing people under the bus. Yeah, I'm talking about you, my co-host. But
it's coming. It's coming.
I know. But I can pretty much say I'm ready for more. I'm ready to see if I can do this back to back.
You know what? I want to say something. I appreciate you thanking me and the kind words that you just expressed. But I want to say this, and because Andrew was there and he spent some time around me and my folks, he will know that this is absolutely the way I feel. I want to thank you guys. There's a reason passionate about this mission as I am. This has nothing to do with me. Nothing. This is not about me whatsoever. My passion is because of the fans and people like you that have such contribution to the industry that we now, it is a part of our fabric. It is part of our makeup. We cannot go to bed sometimes without knowing what's going on in the sports world and the teams that we've chosen and the players that we follow. Without fans, without people like you and Andrew and the shows that you guys take it upon yourself to put out into the universe, the landscape in sports would be so bland, so different. Everyone knows that. Without fans, there are industries that would not even be on the map. So this has, I do this because fans are so deserving of recognition for what they have done, what they continue to do, and to be a small part of it, or a conduit to recognize and bring recognition to fans. I'm honored. I'm humbled. So thank you. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your Mad Scientist show. Thank you for deciding to create something that expresses or provides information and expression to sports fans. Thank you. That's why I do this. I wake up so thankful to do what I do. I really do. I'm humbled to have these conversations because it's not about me. It never was. It never will be. Until we are on national television with this award show, I won't rest. You're talking about not resting? I won't rest until our show is rivaling other award shows out there. To me, it's insulting, and I don't mean to speak negatively about pets and dogs, but we have a dog show that's on television, a dog award show that's on television before there's a network television show honoring and paying recognition to sports fans. Come on, man. I take that personal. I take it personal. And until we are on national television honoring sport contribution to an industry that they helped build, I will not rest. Period. Full stop.
I had the pleasure of being on Pamela Michelle's and Andrew Fishbane's Sports Infusion, which just happens to be the 2014 winner of the online media category, and got a chance to talk about the experience and my viewpoint. And what I said was, when I walked in the room, I didn't really fully grasp the situation. I didn't realize what was I really walking into. And I was there. I was put on the camera and interviewed, wearing a shirt that says "Stay Back." I'm allergic to stupid. I mean, and I had no idea what I was walking into. No, not a clue. But between that morning into the afternoon, and then the evening at BB King's, where the awards were done, the red carpet, everything, I've become a believer in what a fan brings to the table. One of the things I said during the interview, and I love to see this thing put on the website at some point, was that without fans, there are leagues that would not exist. The NFL would be nothing but a club without fans. The biggest, most powerful league in America would be whittled down to pennies if it was not for the fans that made it happen. Talent gets you so far. Fans get you the big stadiums because that's who fills it. They get you the big media contract because that's who watches it. So all this multi-billion-dollar organizations, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, would be whittled to nothing without the power of the sports fan. So I think once I realized the gravity of what I was experiencing, I became a believer. I have seen the light and have totally bought into what a fan brings to the table. I think it's awesome that there's such a strong focus on community involvement. I mean, Nick's work with autism is second to none. I do stuff with the American Diabetes Association and the Order of DeMolay. Not nearly as cool as the stuff he does, but that's important too, especially as a winner. That's a way we can promote and get others to at least look, because I guarantee you, people are going to love what a fan brings to the table. They just don't know about it yet, and that's part of building something from scratch. Is you start small, you get that core, and then that core has to explode and get everyone else to on board with it. And I think that move to Los Angeles next year for your awards bowl is going to be monumental in its impact in making what a fan, what your vision of what a fan should be.
I agree with you. We are so excited about the move, and the interesting thing about this whole process is what many people don't know and don't understand is we are still in our developmental period. This year, this past weekend was our midway point. We're just in our third year of a 5-year committed developmental period. So we're still tweaking. We're still figuring out the best way to do certain things. We're making sure the things that we are doing will bring fans back and engage them in what our mission is. We are pretty set and strong in that mission. Inclusiveness and respect is the two key words that we believe will be very important to our goals and aspirations. But we're still in the developmental stages. So moving to Los Angeles in our fourth year gives us 2 years in the last, the last stages of this plan to not only be more exposed in the second largest market in the world. It's an entertainment-driven market as opposed to a service and tourist-driven market here in Orlando. The access that we will have to athletes doing it the week of the ESPYs is huge. So I agree with you. We're so excited about this move. We know what it means to What a Fan and our development period. And we're going to tweak for the next 2 years. And in that fifth year, we will be ready to start our marketing and advertising, which we've not done. We've done none of that. Everything we've done has been online and on our website and our social media. We haven't even started the process of marketing because we're still tweaking. So, needless to say, the future of What a Fan and the What a Fan Awards is extremely bright because as we now galvanize our past and current winners of the award show, the past nominees that want to be more involved, you've got a small army of people, and it doesn't take a lot. You get folks that are committed to the cause, and big things can happen.
I want to give a little bit of a narrative of what I went through when I was up there to get the award. I'm sitting with my wife at one of the tables, and Nick's just blowing up my phone. What's going on? Did we win? What's going on? And because the way it was set up, there was a house band, and we had the awards broken up into segments. So the house band would do a set, we do a segment. House band would play a set, we do a segment. And we were the second last award in the second in a particular segment. And Nick's just going crazy because there's nothing to report, and the guy is just having a freaking aneurysm over it. And I had to tell him, patience, grasshopper. And that's actually, I texted, and after that, Nick seemed to calm down a little bit. We get called up. The mad scientist gets called. So I walk up to the stage. I've got the phone in hand where Nick has a speech written out. And Lowell, I showed you the speech. It was a book. And as Nick comes later, he probably would have read it pretty much verbatim. And there was no way I could have done it. People would have started throwing things at me. Get off the stage! So I had to make a little bit of a humorous spin, aside from summarizing, hitting all his points, except for the one about me. I skipped that one. But I kid you not, I started off with Chapter 1, Call Me Ishmael. Kid you not.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Nick wrote an entire book, and Pamela Michelle was teasing me the entire evening leading up, just to mess with me, and we decided that I was going to mess with Nick a little bit more, and the only way I was going to show him the result was to have my wife, who did a little bit of video, take a snapshot from what's in that video, send it to me, and I would send it to him. I wouldn't say any words, just send the picture. And the guy didn't get it. We won? What am I doing on stage holding an award? Why do you ask that question? Of course we won because we're awesome and we do awesome things and we're going to keep doing awesome things. But I did say on audio that Nick was going to poop his pants when he found out that we won. And I turned out to be wrong. He did not poop his pants. He ended up some Johnny Walker Blue, which is way better than pooping your pants. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm really excited about you guys, and Nick, you use the word hopefully that you'll make it next year. We're moving this thing to Los Angeles. It's I think it's going to be a historic move for us, and another big part of our journey and our chapter. And I think you should use the word. I will definitely be there in Los Angeles next year, so you can be the presenter of the 2016 online media category. It'd be a shame if you're not there.
Well,
we
I will
need
say
to be
this.
there.
No, I will say this. It's only been 3 years since this organization has been, formed by you. But I don't know if it's allowed. I'll find out right now. But
oh boy.
When I show up next year, it's going to be not as a presenter. It's going to be the first two-time champion of What a Fan. Because I said it before and I will say it again. I will not rest until this show cannot go any further, push the envelope as much as I can. Now, if it's not allowed, I will definitely be there as a presenter. I will hand over the trophy, gritting my teeth in doing so, knowing that this should still be mine. I'm joking. Or am I? But if I am nominated again next year, if it is allowed, I would love to defend my title.
Well, let me say this. It is. We have not. Two things. I want to say two things. The 3 years that you speak of is just the 3 years that we started the award show, and I actually created What a Fan now 17 years ago as a television project, and unfortunately when we shot the pilot and we ultimately sold and partnered the show with CBS, the 9/11 incident, our show release was after the 9/11 incident. So we've been at this for a little while. I put it on hold and then brought it back to life about 6 years ago. So 6 years ago is when we decided to bring What a Fan back to life, and then 3 years ago we launched the Sports Fan Conference and What a Fan Awards. Secondly is we haven't allowed, once you win, you've won forever. No one can ever take that away from you. You are a historic winner, and we haven't decided yet if we were going to let winners be in that category again, and that's probably something that will evolve. Super Bowl teams can win a Super Bowl a second time, and Oscar winners can certainly win an Oscar a second time based on their performance. So I think it is only natural sometime in the future that we make it possible for award winners to submit themselves again. I don't see why that couldn't happen, actually. And you're making me think about it right now, which is kind of cool. But as of now, next year, you would not be coming back to in the category. You would be the reigning winner. You will be that reigning winner forever, and we would have you present to the new winner in 2016.
I'll take it. I'll take it. You know,
take it and
what do you call it? I wouldn't be modest. I would not be modest enough in saying, you know, being that I know I can say that I am part of a very, very exclusive club right now. Actually, excuse me, we are a very exclusive club right now. That, you know, if it happens down the road, it happens down the road. Nobody can take this away from Drew and me. And, you know, when it's handed over to the next person, you know, they'll know that they have a nice, large legacy to live up to. Because as I had to follow Pamela and Fish, now they have to follow me. That's not saying that, you know, and Drew, that's not saying that, you know, that's very, very large footsteps to follow. I would be remiss in not saying that. But in the end, it was a great ride. It was awesome to find out. And to sip that Johnny Walker Blue, which I've been saving for a very, very, very long time, was probably the best sip of something that I ever had in quite some time, because I can actually say, well, before we let you go, that, you know, this show, from its very humble beginnings when it was known as the Sports Chronicles, up to where it is now, the people that have come and gone will always be a part of this show. That's never going to go away. I share my award not only with Drew because it's called the Mad Scientist Sports Lab, but it was in my speech. All the co-hosts that we've had, Kyle Nash, Pamela Michelle, Thomas Murphy, Robin Lynn, Quinn Jordan, all of the co-hosts that I had from the very beginning up until now will always have a part in this award. And I wouldn't be where I am right now without all those people, because if I tried to do this solo, I'd probably be cursing up a storm, or I would be fumbling over my words, or I would be a blithering fool. And that's why, you know, this show is what it is. It's not just me, it's everybody that's been along for the ride. And Lowell, again, I just got to say thanks, and we'll definitely have you back on, you know, again, in the not-too-distant future to talk about the planning and everything like that. And you can rest assured that both Andrew and I will be pounding the pavement for people to go to Los Angeles and take part in a very special event known as the What a Fan Conference.
Count us in.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for having me on. Congratulations, you guys. You earned it. You are part of a very exclusive group of historic winners in this industry, and that's pretty exciting.
Now, Lowell, before you go, real quick. Aside from blowing my mind with the size of the ring that you wore for What a Fan, the trophy itself weighs a metric ton. What the heck is that thing made out of?
I can't tell you that. I have to shoot you.
That thing weighs a ton. Holy jeez, I almost dropped the thing. I was like, I had to give it back to Pamela Michelle. It was so heavy.
Yeah, it's we're pretty excited about the trophies and the rings. You know, we wanted it to be something that people were proud to display, proud to wear, and we're tweaking those items as well. We were going to change the ring every year, so each class of winners had their own very unique ring. I think we're gonna change that. Everyone really liked the 2013 ring, which is the one that I was wearing that evening. So I think we're going back to that ring. Each year we'll change the stone to a particular color so that we can still separate the winners class of each year. So, but that ring seems to be very popular and gets a lot of attention whenever the winners wear it.
I will pay money for one of those things.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and you have a good night, okay?
Thank you so much, guys. Congratulations again. Have a great rest of the weekend.
And
you as well, man. Thank you.
And that was Lowell Moore from What a Fan. And, well, I made mention of our next guest. And I invited him on tonight because he thought we were going to talk about college football, but no, we're not. I wanted to have him on to personally thank him, since he was one of the founding members of this show. And, for a good few months when we were known as The Sports Chronicles and then TSC Saturday Night, he was like the yin to me and Drew's yang. And the amount of witty retorts he would have towards me and, giving me grief on, like, certain quotes that I happened to make, which was one of the reasons why I was monikered the mad scientist of sports. But, it wouldn't be the Mad Scientist Sports Lab without having a little TSC Saturday Night reunion. So I will introduce my very good friend, my very good colleague, and the co-founder of the original show, ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Nash.
What's going on tonight, gentlemen? Look, I was wondering here with all these speeches and stuff you guys are giving, I felt like I just walked off to the set to the Braveheart remake or something. I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if you're wearing some sort of blue makeup or something like that. This is like radio, not TV, so I can't see that. But, the passion's still there. There you go.
Braveheart remake? Well, they may take our lives, but they'll never take our sheep.
I was about to hear. Did you hear me? If you want, I can say it. Freedom. There you go. There's my sheep. There's my little Braveheart quote. But seriously, Kyle, I mean, when we started this 3 years ago, and we put this little thing together, we never knew it would morph into what it is right now. And even though, we went our separate ways because, obviously with you having your lovely daughter, you and your wife having your lovely daughter Victoria, and, other circumstances of life that have taken place, it's not like I would ever forget, where everything started. And I remember we used to do the picks. We used to do the three-way banter about, whether it was the SEC, Notre Dame, what do you call pro football, the ace formation, which was like the big talk, the big talking point whenever we discussed the Patriots and other offenses. Me calling Joe Flacco elite, which to this day I'm still trying to figure out what made me say he was an elite quarterback.
He's admitted it. There's a hope.
And getting flack for it for quite some time. Whenever I would pontificate about Notre Dame, I would always talk about the Golden Dome, and you would go off on the shiny gold helmet and make me feel like yay big, especially during a national championship game. When we got sort of thrashed by Nick Saban, and my cousin Vinny quotes, which I still to this day butcher beyond a shadow of a doubt, but I got to tell you, I mean, we, meaning meaning me and Drew, would not be where we are if it wasn't for you, sticking with us the first, few months of the show and everything like that, and keeping us in tight formation as best as you could before everything falls off the proverbial track. But it was. It just wouldn't be right if I just didn't say it now, but thank you. I mean, I probably have said it to you many, many times, but in this instance, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I mean, you were one of the originals. You righted the ship many times when, I would go off on like 190 different directions on a conversation or something like that. And somehow you always kept me on the straight and narrow, especially like late last year, when I didn't know if I really wanted to do this anymore. And, I really have to say that if it weren't for you, none of this would be where it is right now. And that 2015 Online Media Award, you had a major part in it, whether you want to believe it or not.
Well, this is going to sound cocky, but I have to remind you anyway, you're the one that recruited me. I'm only in the house because you recognize skill. No, I'm just kidding, man. I try to make this. I try to make this a moment. I really do, and yet. Wait, hold on. Wait. I got one even better. There you go. So that was the moment. Yeah, exactly.
I need to get the whammy on there. I need to put the whammies on.
Yeah, that's a good call, too. Well,
now,
if
Nick,
I just let it be a moment, would it really be me, Nick? Be real.
No, not really. Not really. But Nick, Kyle and my history runs a little bit deeper than that. I was not part of the pilot episode. I was part of Kyle's first season as the student of the game all the way back in 2006. I mean, this is where it all got started and laid the groundwork for what later became what Kyle does today with his Student of the Game podcast, but the stuff that he's done elsewhere, the TSC radio show, later TSC Saturday Night, the OT with me and Kyle, both of those very much started with a small podcast called the Student of the Game all the way back in 2006. Look where we have come all the way to today.
But we're certainly not three dudes crowded around a microphone in a bedroom. That's just awkward.
No, but we used to be. Just saying.
Oh God. Anyway, but how many times on the show when when we really had some really good debates and everything like that. And the funny thing is, when I recruited Kyle, I didn't know who Kyle Nash was until I heard him on Tom and what's his name, and Mike Francina's show, The Afternoon Drive on WTMY. He was a regular guest on there, and there were some times where I had to follow him, and I was like, I kept saying, why do I have to follow this guy? Why? Yeah, I mean, he was, lucid, to the point, everything like that. And then I would come on, and it was like, really, it's like the mamas and the papas following Metallica or something like that. It's just not fair. It was just not fair. So, but when I started talking to him, I was like, look, would you mind doing a podcast? I didn't know him from Adam or anything like that. And I started doing Quinn's show, and I was doing the NFL previews, and Kyle was on the show with me, and that's where it all started for us. And I was a sub on Right on Cue, And then we opened up the Sports Chronicles Radio Network, and sure enough, it was me and Kyle to start. And within like a couple of weeks, Andrew came aboard. And after that, it was just pure, sheer, unadulterated mayhem. I mean, it was some of the best radio that you could possibly have. And I'm not just saying that because, these two are my friends and colleagues and everything like that, but I would have put my show up 2 years ago, when this was being done against any show out there, and I still think to this day, we blew everyone away because we were real, we were genuine, we didn't give a crap, and we said what we had to say and said it. I mean, to this day, I still think Joe Flacco is an elite quarterback, and I know I will catch flack for it.
No, stop drinking the Kool-Aid, man. Stop it.
I will say to this day that the SEC is the devil reincarnate. I will say to this day that Nick Saban is Lucifer himself. I mean, I will say to this day that talk about anything football, baseball, basketball, it didn't matter. At least I knew going in that I am not going to be blowing smoke because if I didn't have my facts straight, I would have been eaten alive like White Castle because that's the way Kyle is. Kyle will not let me rest on laurels and everything like that. He will make me fight for my point, and he will even change my mind sometimes. Once in a blue.
That was perfect.
Nick, you can summarize this all in a simple line. We are a series of unfortunate events because you talk small world. You followed Kyle when Tom and Mike were doing their show down in Sarasota. Mike left, and I was the guy who substituted because Kyle suggested, hey, you're not working. You got nothing to do. Why don't you contact Tom? He's looking for a second guy. And all of a sudden, the world starts putting things into place and whatnot. And I remember walking in that studio a nervous wreck, and between Tom Kernan and the general manager at the time of WTMY, Phil Russell, the man, taught me so much that I was able to bring that to the TSC radio show when you and Nick, Kyle and Nick just got it started. But really, we are a series of unfortunate events. Very little thing that if anything happened slightly different would never have happened. I mean, Kyle and I did stuff before, but I was already back on the west coast of Florida. He was in Orlando. I couldn't do his podcast anymore. I was already out of the picture. He had Weasel and Chris, and they were already solidified getting their thing together. So I'm just thrilled that with Kyle's guidance, his suggestion that I was able to get with WTMY, met a great group of guys there, and I'm so excited for the new chapters that crew of guys are building here in the Sarasota, Bradenton area, in the realms of radio online. But those little things made us what we are today and has turned this into an award-winning show. Who would have thought? Really?
Well, it could have been worse.
You could have been stuck with me. Oh, wait.
No, it could have been worse. I mean, this show could have been a travesty. No, it could have been a travesty. This show could have once been a sham. I can't even say that anymore. This show could have possibly turned into a mockery. No, not a mockery. It could have been a Travis Sham mockery, I tell you. But it wasn't. Preach.
Now,
Kyle, enough about me waxing poetic about you or Drew waxing poetic about you or anything like that. But what you have done over at NGSC Sports has been nothing short of a miracle. The way that you've brought in the water, you've tightened up the writers, you've tightened up the podcast there. And, today was a very momentous occasion for you guys in calling the in calling the Nassau Community College football game live, with the help of our good friends at I-95 Sports Entertainment Network, who, by the way, happens to be one of the syndicators of this fine, lovely show that you're listening to right now. But, yes, Bobby, cheap plug. But, when I heard a little bit, of the game and everything, I was like, wow, this was something that was talked about for a few years, and it finally came to fruition. So congratulations, my good friend, on a job well done.
Appreciate that, man. Definitely. I mean, and that's just the first step, too. I mean, because, to serve with the whole What a Fan concept, I heard you and Drew and just, all three of you guys talking about it earlier. And, I mean, you know how I got started. I thought the fans deserved better than the coverage they were getting because, I don't give a damn what LeBron James tweeted about Tim Tebow not making the third starting quarterback spot or whatever, or what LeBron James tweeted about, Deflategate or any of that. At some point, the fans actually want some legitimate content. And that's what got me started, and which is why I think I fit in so well with the concept back when I was involved, and it wasn't going to stop there. The fans want better content. They deserve better content. At the end of the day, we just got to get big enough to provide it to them on a scale where, it's not just some tweet from other gaggle of celebrities that's run by some Mickey Mouse organization out there. See what I did there? Anyways, so, yeah, if anybody gets the goal, it's definitely you guys, and, definitely appreciate the props on the streaming, and, we're building from there, too. Heck, the third episode of the Sports Symposium premiered last week as well, so, the video offering is becoming a very real thing. It's obviously still even younger than its infancy at this point, so to speak, but, it's moving its way up, so, look out for that, definitely.
There's one thing that I missed, though. I just missed one sound drop. I don't happen to have that sound drop. You need to send me that certain sound drop that we always love to play during, when you did Student of the Game and when we did the NFL West recess together. And, we joke about it because, I'm not really a Star Trek fan for anything. It's just one of the most iconic screams in movie history with William Shatner screaming Khan, everything like that. And, I pretty much, had not just used it, but abused it to no end whenever I had a chance and everything. So, I am very happy that the Sports Symposium is moving forward. I'm very happy that the live games are moving forward. I'm very happy that, that everything is working out really well. And, it's just that, it just felt right, though, for this show to be where it is right now, and to have you on to give you the proper props that you deserve, because, none of this was a reality. It was only a figment of my imagination at one time when I was calling into certain shows on TMY, whether it was JP's show, whether it was Tom's show, whether it was Spitz's show early in the morning and stuff like that at TMY. And I never called Ozzy's show because I thought Ozzy sometimes would have Francesa'd me, but, that's another story for another day. But,
he probably would have.
But, when this became a reality, it started with you. And this show, as constituted right now, you were one of the bedrocks of the show. And that will never change. And that's why you will always have a part in the award that Drew and I are receiving because it all started with you. And I wouldn't have it any other way if I can share this award, not only with Drew, but with you and Tom and Robin and Pam and Sharona. Well, how could I forget Sharona? You know, and others that have co-hosted this show. But it's a special place with you because you were the first guy that took a chance on partnering with me to do a radio show when I had no radio experience whatsoever outside of being a caller on many different networks and subbing for someone just, you know, on a whim and everything like that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity, you know, to get the old Sports Chronicles show rolling. Thank you for sticking with me through thick and thin. You know, there was a rough patch there last year. That, you know, you talked me off the ledge many, many times. And it was your kick in the ass and Ralph's kick in the ass that said, reinvent yourself. Do what you want to do. Enjoy it. And that's why this show was created. And that's why, for me personally, winning the award is a nice thing. But I would be remiss in saying it's not proper if I don't share it with those that have been there since day one. So, thank you.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate it. You know, just so long as you give me a part in that group that's going to help motivate you to continue to move beyond it, we'll be in a good place, my man.
You were. Yeah, and I'm not going to lie about it. I mean, there's just there's no joking around about it. I mean, you know, Drew knew that one time I was in a dark spot. And, you know, I really did need a kick in the ass from somebody. And I got it. And, you know, if I didn't get that kick in the ass, this reincarnation of the show as it stands right now would not be around. I wouldn't be on the airwaves much anymore. So that's why, you know, I conned you to come on today because you thought we were talking college football. No, that wasn't the point. The point was this was pretty much a testimonial from both me and Drew to you to say thank you for everything that you've done, for being a friend of our show, for being a co-host on this show, and for being, you know, that guy that did what was necessary to keep me propped up when, you know, the chips were falling as they may. So for not the last time, but for this part, I am going to say thank you. And who knows, in the future, we're going to overtime. Screw it. You know, I hate that British chick. But, you know, I wish I could shut that British chick down completely. But, you know, who knows, maybe in the not-too-distant future, this family, this threesome that have been together for quite some time can do something down the road. And have fun, because Lord knows I miss getting abused on air on a weekly basis by Kyle Nash and Andrew Blukoff. Andrew gets me good, but if the two of you
I
were
abuse
together,
him all the time.
I know. Trust me, I know. I hear it every week.
His shrink here is all about.
Yeah. But, you know, in all seriousness, Kyle, you know, you the man. You've always been the man. And it's been one wild ride, man, and and I'm glad it all started with you.
Appreciate that, my man. Appreciate it. These are good words to hear because it'll help keep me going too. So that's a good thing, man. I appreciate that.
He's tearing up, Drew. I can hear it. He's actually tearing up right now. He's getting it. It's
Let's
almost
not go overboard, Chief.
You know who's not tearing up? This guy.
No, not at all. But Kyle, I'm definitely going to have you back to actually talk football the next time that you're on air. But why don't you let the good people know where they can find you now these days? And once again, give a shout out about the Sports Symposium.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. First of all, of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You find me on Twitter at the SOTG. And, of course, check out my weekly antics from the Matchup Media here. Now the NFL season has started. Actually, there's still time. The Sunday games haven't been played yet. Sure, I talked about the whole Patriots thing and, first of all, stop with Communicate-Gate. Anyway, but that being said, and then, of course, you can find my works on the NGSC Sports YouTube page as well. The Sports Symposium got our third episode out. A little piece for you on Final Fantasy, not really, on fantasy football and its effect on fanhood and just where its place in the NFL lexicon. This actually turned out to be a much more interesting video than I honestly thought it would be when I first turned it out. But go ahead and check that out. It's certainly a lot of fun too. So guys, thank you for the tribute. I don't really have a good response for it because I wasn't exactly prepared for it, but it was a good thing to hear, guys, so I appreciate it.
So the next question is, how come everything that seems to be going wrong has a gate next to it? Why do we always have to put gate next to it?
Well, because if we called it the Deflate Unicorn, it wouldn't sound as scary.
But it does sound more interesting. Come on, the Deflated Unicorn? I'm interested. What is the Deflated Unicorn?
Actually,
please tell me more.
Unicorn sounds like something you can't look up at work on the internet. That's what that's.
You know the history behind anything that says gate was back in the was back when Watergate took place with Richard Nixon, because the actual place was called the Watergate Hotel. So
correct.
It just stuck. So everything's like this gate, that gate, you gate, me gate.
What about fence? Can we use fence? Deflate fence.
So wait, if you use the word gate less, would that be a mitigate? I'm just asking.
Oh boy, testing.
Is that word too advanced for you in the dictionary? Hey, I could start with my Jeremy Lin puns again.
I don't know. You can make a pun, but it may cost someone their job.
Yeah, true.
Too soon?
Very
soon.
All right, Kyle. Have a good one, and definitely going to get you on to talk some football in the next few weeks, okay?
Appreciate it, man. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
All right, see you, Kyle.
That was Kyle Nash. I got him. So, which was it was a good thing. It was good having him on, just to have a little bit of a reunion and stuff like that. But to finish this off, because we're in overtime, people aren't listening anyway until they listen to the podcast. To finish this whole thing off about winning the award and talking sports and everything like that, this is something that we do. We're just me and Drew. We're two normal guys that lead normal lives. One's in Florida, one's in New Jersey. We both have families. And we take time out every Saturday night to come on the show and just give the people what they want. They want to listen to two normal guys talk sports because we're talking their language. And, never in my wildest dreams would I ever have thought that this show would ever be up for an award or even win an award, because I'm having fun with it. I will always have fun with it. I will always come out to try and entertain you, but also to keep the facts straight. And if we don't do that, we are not doing our jobs, not only as media guys now, but we're not doing our jobs because we're lying to ourselves as fans. And if you don't believe what we say, if you have a problem with what we say, if you don't agree with what we say, that's fine. It's great. That's what we expect. I don't expect anybody to agree with most of what I say. I don't expect everybody to think that I'm always right, because I'm not. I'm never always right. Hell, I'm 99% wrong when I talk sports and everything like that. And I mean that in a good way, because if I was right or anything like that, I would become Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, and I would say my crap doesn't stink. And that's just never going to happen. With that being said, that's why we're here to give the fans what they want. There's an old slogan that we had at the Sports Chronicles Radio Network, the one that was created back in 2012. Real fans, real sports talk, no BS. And that continues to this day. It continues right here on the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. It's a mantra that will never, ever die. And I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, that Drew and I will always come correct. We will never BS you, and we will always try to entertain you as the best as we can. And I guarantee you that this show will get stronger and better as time goes on. An award, I said it before, an award is nice, but it doesn't mean we're going to stop. With that being said, my name is Nick Ficarelli. I am the Mad Scientist of Sports. You can find me live on Twitter at NAF_inscriber. Again, that's NAF_inscriber. You can find me on Facebook as well. Just look for Nick A. Ficarelli II. And I won't be around the next 2 weeks. It's shocking, I know. But in the next 2 weeks, I will actually be on vacation in Florida. But my esteemed partner, Dr. Andrew Glukov, will be manning the lab. Next week, special guest host will be none other than the 2014 What a Fan Online Media Award winner, Pamela Michelle. So, 2014, 2015, yeah, it stays in the family. So, Drew, take us home.
All right, my name is Andrew Glukov. You can catch me on Twitter at StatBoyDrew. Looking forward to next week with Pamela Michelle. Had a chance to hang out with her at the What a Fan Sports Awards, and she's awesome. My wife thinks she's awesome. I think she's awesome. She's just full of awesome. So next week, we're going to do this dance all over again, except Nick is going to get way better looking and be replaced by someone else. Just saying. So.
Hey. Anywho. So, Drew and Pam will be here next week live on the Inscriber Media Network, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to tone down the beacons. It's time to erase the chalkboard and put in some new experiments. Well, actually, Andrew's going to be doing that. I don't have to worry about it because I'm going on vacation. So Andrew's going to write down the experiments, and Andrew's going to bring in the test subjects that'll be coming rolling in to give you what you want. And before we go, I have to say thank you to those that syndicate our show, because without them, we wouldn't be as successful as where we are now. So allow me to give you the networks that syndicate the Mad Scientist of Sports Lab. We got I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network by Bobby Garanti, War Room Sports led by Devin McMillan and D. Austin, Happy Hour Network by Lee Vowell and Ted Hicks, The Arena Sports Network by Brian Snow, Die Hard Sports Radio by Steve Itzkowitz, Sports for Fans by Sean Stewart, Nuts and Bolts Sports by Joe Cardozo, Late Night Sports Radio by Keith Grieve, Draft Utopia by Chris Ransom, Asylum Sports Network by the Ricks, Flieger and Briggs, RF Sports Radio by Rodney Fisher, and Cave Radio Sports by Marquise Lee. Thank you very much for syndicating this great little show that we have right here. Wow, we really went over on our time, but guess what? I don't give a damn. You know why? Because we're the 2015 Online Media Award winner, baby, and we'll be back next week. On that note, I'm Nick, he's Drew. Peace Time to go.